Imagine entering an underground vault, sealed for over 2 centuries. Imagine that inside that vault is a piece of ordinary bread, flour, and water, exposed to humidity, bacteria, and the relentless passage of time. By the laws of nature, in a couple of weeks that bread should turn to dust. But it doesn't. Today we're going to travel back in time to a summer night in 1730, in one of Italy's most beautiful and devout cities, Siena. A night where the silence was broken by a scream of horror that would change the history of faith forever. What happened next defied thieves, survived the flames, baffled 20th-century scientists, and, to this day, remains one of humanity's most unsettling and beautiful secrets. Why has official history tried to make you forget this story? Stay until the end, because the modern scientific analysis of what you are about to hear will leave you breathless. It is August 14, 1730. The entire city of Siena, in Tuscany, Italy, is celebrating. It is the eve of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. The streets are illuminated with torches, people sing, and priests and citizens gather at the grand cathedral. Virtually the entire population is concentrated in a single spot in the city. The surrounding churches remain empty. One of them is the Basilica of San Francesco. Taking advantage of the noise of the festivities and the solitude of the church, shadows slip through the Gothic naves. They are not looking for valuable paintings or golden chandeliers. They go straight to the tabernacle. With iron tools, they force the lock of the tabernacle. Their target is a ciborium of pure silver containing 351 consecrated hosts. For thieves, silver is fortune; for the faithful, what's inside is the body of Christ. The criminals empty the ciborium, put the consecrated hosts in a coarse cloth sack, and flee into the darkness of the night. The next day, August 15th, the priest approaches the altar for morning Massachusetts. When he opens the tabernacle, a chill runs down his spine. The ciborium is gone. On the floor, there are only a couple of crumbs of bread. Someone has committed the worst crime of the time, Eucharistic sacrilege. The news spreads like wildfire. The Siena government cancels the festivities. The city bells, instead of ringing in celebration, toll in mourning. Citizens fall to their knees in the squares, begging for forgiveness. The Archbishop himself orders a relentless search and a general fast. 3 agonizing days pass. No one knows where the hosts are. There are fears that they have been thrown into the river, or worse. Until August 17th. In the church of Santa Maria in Provenzano, a parishioner approaches the alms box, a dark wooden box where people used to throw coins for the poor. Looking through the slot, he notices something strange. It doesn't shine like metal. It looks like something white, accumulated at the bottom among the dust and cobwebs. The priests are immediately called. Upon opening the box, their astonishment is absolute. There they are, piled up, covered in dust and dirt, the 351 stolen hosts. But here begins the first mystery. The hosts were intact, but extremely dirty. Mixed with the dirt at the bottom of the box, with cobwebs and debris. In human terms, cleaning them was impossible without destroying them. The Archbishop orders them to be returned in procession to the Basilica of San Francesco. They decide not to consume them because of the filth. Church law at the time dictated that the consecrated hosts should be kept in a sealed ciborium until they decomposed naturally, after which the ashes should be buried in consecrated ground. That was what human logic dictated. But time had other plans. Weeks passed. Then months. Then years. The Franciscan monks checked the ciborium periodically, expecting to see the natural process of decay, mold, worms, the crumbling of the bread. However, what they saw left them speechless. The hosts not only didn't decompose, but they began to shed the dirt and cobwebs on their own, regaining a fresh, white color, as if they had just come out of the sacristy oven. The ciborium didn't smell musty, it smelled like freshly baked bread. Soon, the skepticism of the 18th century European Enlightenment sought to put this to the test. "It's a trick by the monks," said the scientists of the time. "They've secretly switched the hosts." So the civil and ecclesiastical authorities decided to conduct a drastic experiment. On one occasion, they placed a group of unconsecrated hosts, ordinary bread, in a sealed box next to the ciborium containing the miraculous hosts. Within a few months, the ordinary bread was rotten, infested with mites and black mold. The miraculous hosts remained perfect. But the literal trial by fire came decades later, during the Napoleonic invasions. A fire devastated part of the convent and the area where the consecrated hosts were kept. The heat was so extreme that the surrounding metal objects warped from the high temperatures. When the monks returned shivering to the ruins, expecting to find only ashes, they opened the reliquary. The outer metal was charred, but the hosts were completely intact, cool to the touch, and without a single burn mark. The fire had not been able to touch them. Many will say today, well, those were 18th century accounts, people were ignorant and exaggerated. That's why the story doesn't end there. In 1914, Pope Pius X ordered the most rigorous scientific investigation ever recorded in this case. A panel of Italy's most prestigious scientists, chemists, and biologists was convened, led by Dr. Ciro Grimaldi, a professor at the University of Siena. Many of them were openly skeptical. The experiment was rigorous. Samples of the bread were taken, analyzed under a microscope, and subjected to chemical and physical laboratory tests. The official scientific verdict in 1914 was a bombshell. The Siena communion wafers were made of common wheat flour, but they were in an absolutely abnormal state of preservation, inexplicable and impossible according to the laws of physics and chemistry. There was no trace of preservatives, waxes, or chemical manipulation. According to science, that bread should have disappeared 150 years earlier. They repeated the analyses in 1922, 1950, and 1951. The results were always the same, perfectly preserved, with the freshness of bread baked today. While in miracles like the one in Lanciano, 8th century, or the one in Buenos Aires, 20th century, science demonstrated that the bread physically transformed into human heart muscle tissue, specifically the myocardium, blood type AB. The miracle of Siena is the miracle of the absolute incorruption of bread. It is God telling the world that the laws of physics and the decomposition of matter cease in His presence. Today, in the year 2026, if you travel to the beautiful city of Siena and enter the Basilica of St. Francis, you can see them with your own eyes. Almost 300 years have passed. Nearly 3 centuries since that night when thieves threw them into a grimy alms box. The empires of the earth have fallen. Fashions have changed. Scientists and empires have passed into history, but that piece of bread remains, defying time, fire, and human reason. This forgotten historical account is not just a suspenseful chronicle or a curious fact to feed the intellect. It is a silent but thunderous reminder. At every Mass, at every altar in the world, the exact same miracle occurs, even though our biological eyes only see bread. The miracle of Siena was not invented so that we worship the past, but so that we awaken to the present. The next time you see a consecrated host, remember, you are not seeing a symbol. You are seeing the one whom fire could not burn, whom time could not wither, and who promised to be with us, until the end of the world. If this story touched your faith or challenged your logic, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it. Someone out there needs to be reminded that real miracles still happen. Let me know in the comments, were you aware of this impact of science on the Eucharist? See you in the next video.